Hi, this is Ryan Phillips here, and I have a new video capture program. So I have some new graphics. It's kind of like season 2 of a television show. Should be able to upgrade everything a little bit, make it a little bit better quality, better videos hopefully. I'm really impressed with this video software program so far. For example, I can just draw right on the screen if I'd like. Um, so I have like a teleprompter, telestrator, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, this is game 2 of the match between Chris Reynolds and John Trivett. And again, we saw another Grunfeld, which I thought was pretty cool. These guys are really playing fighting chess. They both are basically saying, "I know what you're gonna do," and just bring it. So it's been pretty cool to watch. So anyway, this here goes the game. So it starts out d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, d5, c takes d, knight takes d, e4, knight takes c3, bishop takes, or b takes c3, bishop g7, bishop c4. So far we have a pretty standard Grunfeld, exactly the same as the first game, except colors are reversed. So basically both sides are saying that we're going to see who's better at the Grunfeld. So I really admire the challenge that they put forth to one another. In this position, John deviated first with castle. So castle is a very okay move, I guess, in this position, but it's not as frequent as c5. So if we go to the opening book, it looked like I made 2 of these videos already, and they both got deleted. That's why I decided to try this program out. So hopefully this works better. I have some confidence in the program already. But anyway, it looks like c5 is played a little more than 3-1 over castle, so a little bit more than 75% in comparison to castle. So if I was Chris in this position after castle, I kind of would have made it like my duty in this position to find out what's the difference between castle and c5. So what I saw after c5, or after what I saw by playing castle instead of c5, was that this bishop a3 idea is possible now. And yeah, like I said, I've done 2 videos already, so I have a lot of these lines already showing up. And then the idea is that after c5, the pawn sack actually isn't so bad for black. I'm not sure if John would have played c5 after bishop a3. I suspect he wouldn't. I guess the onus is on black now to justify sacrificing the pawn. And the difference between this position and if John had played the typical c5 first is that after c5, if white plays bishop a3, this will just drop a pawn. So after c takes e4, basically knight e2 is forced. If the point is that if white plays c takes e4 back, now queen a5 check is going to win this bishop on a3. So this is what if I was white, if I was in Chris's position, I definitely would have tried to find the drawback by playing castle instead of c5, and I would have taken it as a challenge to play bishop a3. Not saying that what Chris played with knight e2 was a bad move, because it wasn't, not at all a bad move. But I just think personally I would have liked to have seen, I would have liked to have tried to punish my opponent playing a different move order, especially since I assume that Chris is very well versed in this position, and I am too. I play both sides of the Grunfeld. Well, I play the black side of the Grunfeld, so just by playing the black side so much, I think it would have been easy for me to find this idea with white with bishop a3. And that's just kind of what I would have went to like a more theoretical line to try to show that omitting c5 was a mistake by black. But Chris played knight e2, which is fine, c5, and now we're back in traditional Grunfeld territory. So same as game 1. It looks like here Chris deviated from the first game. We could have had another Seville variation if white chose the castle here. But instead it looks like Chris played rook b1, which is a very infrequent move, but it's a common Grunfeld move. It's typically more seen with the knight f3 and bishop e2 placement of the white pieces. Even prior to developing the dark square bishop, white plays rook b1 in a lot of these lines, like the 6th move usually. And Friday and I used to get into some good games with this rook b1 line, and Friday's very good, always up on opening theory. And he always gave me kind of fits in some of these theoretical lines because he would study the Super GM games and he would know these openings very well. I always thought that opening was one of definitely Friday's best part of his game. So anyway, I'm pretty familiar with this rook b1 idea, but not really in this position. So it's definitely fascinating here. So anyway, so Chris played rook b1, which was pretty cool. Cool idea. So he played rook b1 just to kind of put some pressure on the b6 pawn. And then John played a move that really brought a smile to my face with queen c7. So the modern way of playing the Grunfeld is not with this queen c7 idea, but I know John has been very his style is very influenced by the 60s and 70s chess, as has mine to probably a much lesser extent. And this move just maybe, this is John playing the chess that he knows and that he's familiar with and that he grew up with. So when I saw this move, it just really made me happy. I mean, if you look at some of the Grunfelds that Fischer used to play, queen c7 was a very typical idea. It seems like a little less committal than the ideas they play now. Basically, queen c7 gets on a nice diagonal of b8 a2 b8 h2 diagonal, and now the rook could swing over to d8 potentially, and then the queen has some discovery attacks on the c4 bishop, which is unprotected in some lines. So I thought the way that John played it really, I feel like he was playing true to himself. Instead of trying to go into modern ideas, he's playing what he's comfortable with. So I really respected that. So Chris played, I thought, a very dubious move here with h4. And I feel like Chris is thinking he has to do something more than he really has to do to beat John. The way to beat a higher rated player is not to take wild risks. That's actually playing right into your opponent's hands. It's just to play good solid chess. I thought h4, he's trying to launch a kingside attack, but it shouldn't work. I mean, I know in the perk sometimes this h4 idea is good. It's definitely playable at the very least. I guess the verdict's still out of whether if it's objectively fantastic or not. But it's definitely a playable move in the perk. But in this type of position, I think all the play is still in the center. So h4, I think, is just very very early here. So John finds excellent counterplay. C takes d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and now just beautiful computer-like play by John, basically threatening the bishop on c4. So basically, if White takes a knight on d4, with either knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, then the bishop on c4 hangs, and Black just gains a pawn with a pretty nice position on top of it. So Chris played a good move here. Bishop takes f7, and then Black played rook takes f7 back. Although computer shows that king takes f7 is not a bad move. I can't see too many human players even considering this idea. It's hard for me to see exactly what the idea behind king takes f7 is, and I'm sure the computer will give some fantastic variation about why the king belongs on f7 or something, but rook takes f7 is a very human natural move. So in this position, material imbalance will be even after White takes back on d4, but the problem is that Black got the nice two bishop advantage now, and the bishop could easily go to e6, and then we have the really excellent formation that the Grunfeld player always wants as Black, to have the bishops on h8 a1 and a2 g8, and basically just putting a lot of pressure on White's queen side. So this is basically a dream position for any Grunfeld player. So I think all of White's troubles just were with h4. Anything other than h4, I think, was probably pretty decent. And again, I think d takes c5 is always something that, if you're learning the Grunfeld, if you're an expert, you're probably not too worried about a move like this. But if you're learning the Grunfeld, if you're giving up a pawn in a position, you have to know what to do afterwards, which it's not that easy. It's not easy to figure out how to play exactly. But basically, in all these Grunfeld lines, if White loosens the tension in the center with d takes c5, Black's pieces usually get very active and provide adequate compensation for that. And the e5 square is always something that you see. After d takes c5, there's no more pressure on the e5 square, so Black can make use of that square with his knight pretty effectively usually. And a lot of these games you actually see Black lets the c5 pawn hang for sometimes 10-15 moves. It's not uncommon, and there's just really no good reason for White to ever take that pawn, especially because then the c3 and c5 pawns become quite weak as well. So in this position, this is something that we should definitely look at. I think knight takes d4 is a much more natural move. The knight on e2 is not really doing anything at the moment, so getting into a central square is good. Of course, the knights move slower than bishops, so bishop takes d4 is not really helping the knight get to a more active square. And this knight on e2 is pretty weak at the moment. There's no real f4, f5 ideas. I think after h4, anything with f4 is kind of almost out of the question. So there's no real reason. This knight on e2 is not doing anything too productive here. So get to d4, much more centralized piece. Stops the bishop from going to e6. Can jump to b5 potentially. And it's pretty hard to do anything about if black plays e5, then maybe just like knight f3 or something is a fine move. And the knight's on a more natural square, and I think it kind of plays a more important role in the battle than it does on e2. So bishop takes d4. I can't really say that was a good move, and my first instinct was that knight takes d4 is much better, and the computer kind of backs that up. So here there's a bunch of lines with queen a5 that the computer shows. So there's some pretty cool lines here. So for example, if knight c3 here, this bishop g4 move is very good. And this is an easy move to miss. So maybe something like queen d2, and then rook d8, and then this bishop is no more. And that's all she wrote. Or even e5 is a pretty cool move to attacking the pin piece. So so this bishop g4 moves good. After f3, still this rook d8 idea, and then if just takes here is gonna win this knight on c3. And so basically, it looks like after this move, rook b5 is pretty much forced. But then even queen c7 looks pretty good. Let's say we play like rook c5. And then this cool queen g3 check, and then the bishop's going to fall. So yeah, so this whole variation is very good in this line. And then so if white tries queen d2, just queen takes d2, and at the end of this line the f2 pawn is going to hang, and then subsequently the a2 pawn will fall after that. So this is also very good for black. So basically black is left with the only choices to retreat, or I guess not retreat, run away with king f1. And yeah, this is also very good for black. This rook on f7 is just a beautiful piece. Now it defends the b7 pawn, so this light square bishop can get developed without having to take any precautionary measures against this pawn. And it's also a very nice active attacking piece against the f2 pawn. After the bishop develops, it looks natural. The other rook will go over to f8, and then this f2 square is under attack. So yeah, I think bishop takes d4 is just a mistake. And then John played a very natural move. So I mean, queen a5 is it's maybe not like an impossible move to see, but there is like a lot of calculating. I think e5, I can understand why John played this, because this is one of those moves which just is good, and you don't really have to calculate anything. There's nothing really for white to do that could that would require any like serious calculation from black here. So on bishop e3, bishop e6, castle. So it looks like Chris needed to do something a little bit more active rather than castle here. But I understand that he's probably starting to sense some danger, rightfully so, around this king a little bit. So I understand the decision to castle. Computer showing queen a4 is a little bit better, but that's I mean that's maybe not the easiest move to see. And then I think here was when the game kind of turned back in Chris's favor. So I think John kind of outplayed Chris out of the opening due to premature h4. But here the best move is just bishop takes a2. Very John Zavala-like move, just grabbing material, but and a good decision. Just get this pawn off, and then have the past A and B pawns, which I think would be pretty devastating. But I'm assuming what John was afraid of was after bishop takes a2, rook a1, bishop c4, was just this bishop takes a7 idea, regaining the pawn. But the problem with this move is that after b5, white will lose a piece, because if the bishop retreats, which it has to do, the bishop is attacked 3 times by the rook on a8, queen on c7, and then the rook on f7, and only protected once. So after the bishop moves, say to e3, which is I think pretty much forced if you want to keep the bishop, after rook takes a1,
Okay, so it looks like the video automatically cuts off about 15 minutes, which I think that's good because now I don't have to worry about like my work being lost or anything. So it looks like when the maximum recording time is reached, it'll just automatically shut off the video. So that's pretty cool. So it looks like I have about 15 minutes of recording time. So I'm guessing most of my videos in the future will probably be two-part videos now, or I guess potentially even three-part if the game's long enough. So anyway, after rook takes a1, queen takes a1, bishop takes e2. It looks like white will just lose a piece in this variation. So I kind of had I kind of made a video, probably one of my first videos where I was talking about, I think it was my game against Michelangelo Barozzi. Still a cool name. Anyway, I was talking about when you respond to like empty threats, that look like there's something, but they're really not. That's usually I think those are usually turning points of chess games. Chess is a game of timing and precision, and if you're spending any one tempo on a threat that doesn't even exist against good competition, that's going to be a turning point a lot of the time. So I think this is no exception. After b6, I think this really kind of gave Chris a chance to get back in the game a little bit. So after queen a4, which was a logical move I thought, connecting the rooks and guarding the a2 pawn, looks like we got a game again, although after the computer move of queen c4, I think black still has an advantage. After rook d8 though, which John played, I think even though black still has a slight pull, I think that with accurate play, white should draw this position from here. So rook fc1, queen e7, hitting the h4 pawn over here. And then John played g3. I will say, or I'm sorry, Chris played g3, I'm sorry. I will say though that I think strategically John did play a little bit better because without the light squared bishop on the board for white, these light squares are just really awful. So this is strategically, this is just it's not the best chess. I mean, to get rid of the light squared bishop and then have a pawn formation of f2, g3, h4, especially when your opponent still has their light squared bishop. This is tough position to hold. So I think in retrospect, probably h5, just sacrificing another pawn, would have been better than allowing this all these weaknesses on the light square. So bishop g4, and then Chris played knight c3. So finally getting this knight on e2 into the game a little bit, trying to jump to d5. And then Chris played e6. And then knight d5. So the computer actually doesn't like knight d5 that much, but it's a hard move to criticize because I think most people are going to play knight d5. It looks like the natural square for the knight. I guess it just doesn't really work tactically. It looks like. So I can see strong players avoiding knight d5 on the tactical grounds, but again, it's a very natural move to play. I can't really. It's hard to fault Chris for playing this move. So after bishop f3, the point is that once this e4 pawn gets removed, even though it's protected by the queen once, this knight on d5 is now then attacked twice by the rook on d8 and the queen on e6. So that's really the reason why knight d5 is unfortunately not playable for Chris in this position. I mean, 9 times out of 10, I would say a move like knight d5 is going to be a good move. This just happens to be a position where it's not that good because of the weaknesses on the light squares. So queen h2, I think that's almost forced. I guess there's some ways to get maybe queen b5 and queen f1. No, I mean this forced because the queen going to f1 doesn't stop anything. If the queen gets to h3, you have the h1 mate. So yeah, it looks like king h2. That's basically the only move in this position. So Chris finds that move, and then I think queen g4. That's actually the first move that came to mind. Just keep the pressure on the light squares. Something like bishop takes e4, queen f3 looks like a pretty menacing idea. I guess after queen g4, maybe I don't know, maybe knight c3. But then maybe like I don't know, rook d3 or something. I don't know. It's hard to say. It just looks like there's a lot of pressure on the white side of the board after that. Maybe so queen g4, knight c3, maybe. Yeah, I think even sacrificing the exchange after rook d3 Trying to play rook takes c3 is probably good. So maybe, let's just look at it. Okay, bishop f6. Oh, that's a good move. So bishop f6, threatening bishop takes h4, and then queen g2 mate. So that's a pretty tough. And then looks like bishop g5. I guess that will just. Oh, okay. So yeah, these this is bad analysis on my behalf. So all these threats are just crazy. So all these the light squares are so weak that it makes white's position pretty tough. So I think John let Chris a little bit off the hook here with bishop takes e4. Even getting the pawn, it probably isn't as good as keeping the pressure on the light squares. So after knight to e7, nice intermezzo by Chris. Queen takes e7, queen takes e4. So even for the pawn though, now the light squares around the white king are fixed. I think that John made a bad decision by giving up the light square bishop, even for getting a pawn, because now white's pieces actually start to become a little active too. I'd say the dark square bishop on e3 is actually better than the dark square bishop on g7 here. So yeah, I'd say that there's really it's hard for black to convert the extra pawn into a win. Even the queen on e4 is actually a good blockader in this position because it has quite a bit of mobility still, since it's blockading like in the middle of the board versus say like e2 or something, or somewhere where it's like more passive. I mean, from e4 it's a good blockader. So queen e6, a4, which is a very good move, protecting the pawn with the queen, and then also protecting the b5 square, maybe rook b5, and then once the rook's protected by the a4 pawn, probably some tactical possibilities aren't there anymore for black. Rook df8, and then yeah, so these rooks they look menacing on the half-open f-file, but this bishop e3 f2 piece combination makes it very difficult for anything really to happen. White doesn't have too much to worry about here. So now Chris started playing very accurately with rook b5. So just putting some pressure on this e5 pawn. Maybe even an idea like f4 is, I mean, it looks very risky to, if I'm white, I'm not going to open up the position like that unless I'm pretty sure that's at least an advantage. But f4 is possible, it looks like. So then John played rook e7. So, I mean, Chris's strategy is working. He's making black's pieces get tied down in defense on the e-pawn, while in the meantime all his pieces start to get a little bit more active. So a5, rook fe8, rook c6, and now, now Chris has the much better position. Whether it's enough to play for a win, I'm not sure, but he definitely has all the chances. Queen f5, queen d5 check, king h8. And here Chris took a draw. Maybe he has more to play for, but I can't really fault his decision. I don't know. I wonder if I know experience is kind of a funny thing. Like I wonder if his match against Manny, where he kind of got off to a poor start, made him more inclined to take a draw here. And then also, of course, John is a little bit better, higher rated player. So maybe that factored into his decision. And then also, maybe he just didn't want to. Maybe just wanted to get on the scoreboard. So give him a little bit of confidence going forward. It's hard to say. I mean, I wonder if it was like an experience thing though. So I mean, that'd be like experience is kind of a funny thing. If he was like worried about the Manny match where he got off to that tough start and he just wanted to take a draw to get some momentum going. I wonder if that like experience kind of impacted his decision here, where maybe it shouldn't have. Maybe he should have been okay with keeping the tension and just playing on here a little bit. Anyway, though, it was a nice match. Nice game. Looking forward to the rest of the match. I think Chris really, he handled this game well to hang in there, and I think that should give him a lot of confidence moving forward. And I think if Chris plays his best chess, I think he's going to give John a fight. So definitely excited to see that. So now with my new Teleshare software, I will sign out with a very ugly signature. Not too much uglier than my actual signature though. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I had fun. And boy, that really is an ugly signature. But thanks for watching. Hope the new software is enjoyable. All right.